Thank you for coming to my YouTube channel today. My name is Dan Ober. I'm a level 2 QHHT practitioner. I'm also the author of The Adventures of Charlotte, A Winter's End, and soon coming up, I'm going to be offering meditation training online. I'm also going to be making videos of other spiritual topics that come up in my QHHT sessions and are also featured in this book. So today I'm going to be reading to you the first chapter. This book is about a young woman named Charlotte who wakes up spiritually and finds others along the way who are also going through their own unique wake-up process. This book is set in the late 1700s and follows that timeline, but also goes back further in time, and you'll see more about this when you order a copy of this book. It's going to be available on Amazon.com. And coming up soon, it's also going to be a sequel to this book. So for now, I'll read to you the very first chapter of The Adventures of Charlotte, A Winter's End. Charlotte stared blankly into the mirror and wondered how she had gotten to this point. She could hardly recognize herself behind her evasive, morose look as she saw staring back at her. For the longest time, the only emotion that she ever used to show was her sense for independence and the need to be alone. Everything else was just a mask that she was wearing, and tonight was no different, as she planned to wear another mask. It was just one of those evenings that Charlotte wanted to escape to her safe place in isolation and forget about her emotions, responsibilities, her duty to family. Even with all her newfound knowledge and ideas of the world seen and unseen, she still could not find a way to go through with it. In her mind, she felt like she only had two options, and neither of them felt like good decisions to her. Charlotte chose to ignore her inner voice that asked her if there was truly only two options available to her. It was difficult for Charlotte to think past herself and her own needs given her current situation. Charlotte's father planned for her to marry, and his plan only continued to drive a wedge between their relationship. Her father planned and organized a grand masquerade in her honor. All the well-to-do people and families in the area were invited. Her father even invited some of those families from overseas that he had ties to. His plan was to have Charlotte pick out the most eligible bachelor to be her husband, and whoever she would choose would become the future head of her father's business. Charlotte cringed at this idea, and she objected to his plan, but she was reminded by her father that she was only a woman. If she wanted to, she could easily take over the business on her own. She had witnessed how to operate their plantation ever since she was a young child. She did not have any siblings and used to attend with her father everywhere he went. Her ancestors had made the courageous journey across the ocean 100 years prior. They were eager for new experiences, wealth, and power. It was everything this new land could offer. Initially, when they arrived, they set up a trading post just south of Baton Rouge. Once it became profitable, her great-grandfather sold it, and with the proceeds, he purchased hundreds of acres of land. This land ran all the way from the bayou in the south, the great forests to the east and the west, and was bordered to the north by the Mississippi River. Charlotte had spent most of her life exploring the land and becoming familiar with the plants and animals. At times, Charlotte would travel back down to the old trading post, where she still was welcomed by the family who bought it from her great-grandfather. Charlotte loved seeing the people coming and going and hearing their stories. Charlotte missed those days when things were simple. This was long before she ever found love, knowledge, and her new idea of spirituality. She was always a free spirit, regardless of the fact that she was forced to go to church. Her father wanted her to obey the pastor and his teachings, but his ideas never really made sense to her. She knew there were other people in the world who had different thoughts, beliefs, and ideas of what God meant. Charlotte never viewed them as wrong or damned to an eternity in hell. What she always thought and felt was that what mattered is the love that you have in your heart and how you treat other people. This differed greatly from what she witnessed in church. Even more so, the one event that shaped her life was the death of her mother, which occurred when Charlotte was only 10 years old. She hid the pain from this loss very well, using her stoicism, her smile, and her ability to connect with others. This sense of loss and the ruse she noticed going on every Sunday initially prompted her to look inward for more, because she knew there was more than was being taught to her. Charlotte looked as hard as she could, but she felt trapped, much the way she was feeling this evening. She wished that what she had recently been learning about would have been revealed to her sooner, but life does not always fall into place in the way in one wishes. One of the things that she was learning about was that she was sensitive to the way that other people felt. It was really more than just how other people felt emotionally, as she would come to find out. However, in her efforts to figure out her identity, she began looking back at her life and how it got that way. She remembered being a young woman and having this idea that if other people were sick, that she would have the ability to take that sickness away. Charlotte came out of her thoughts and regained her focus, staring in the mirror. She noticed a knocking sound was coming from the door. Charlotte must have been deeper in thought than she realized. She was not always aware of this part of herself. It was a part that she could easily become lost in contemplation with. Tonight was no different as Charlotte weighed her options for what she planned to do. The knocking on the door continued, and she reluctantly opened it, finding Tara standing on the other side. Tara had been employed by her father ever since she was a young girl. Tara did have positive and friendly intentions towards Charlotte and viewed Charlotte as a daughter. Even so, Charlotte always wondered if Tara really loved her. Tara spoke and said, "Your guests are arriving." Charlotte almost laughed out loud and rolled her eyes, and then she said sarcastically, "Right, my guests." Tara dismissed her comment and smiled at her. Charlotte was wearing a lovely ivory strapless gown. She wore a necklace of pearls and had her hair pulled back tightly, allowing some to hang down, showcasing the waviness that her hair possessed. Charlotte truly was a sight to see, and Tara continued smiling at her in approval. Tara led her down the hallway to a large curving staircase that led into the ballroom. Walking through the ballroom, Charlotte felt how truly wrong this made her feel, and her stomach tightened. The only person Charlotte wanted to see that night would not be there, and her heart began to ache. She hoped that she would be able to hide her disapproval and be a good little girl for her father's sake, but she doubted that. Moving from the ballroom into the foyer, Charlotte met her father and they walked to the front door. It was a gigantic door, way bigger than anyone would ever truly need. Outside, the sconces were burning bright and the pillars holding up the overhang made shadows across the entrance. A line of carriages were approaching and her father asked her if she was ready. How could she really answer this question? She smiled instead and greeted the first family that arrived. The Conways were also a well-known plantation owner in the area, and they also had a son about her age. Charlotte viewed him as an immature brute. He thought his status and strength alone would woo Charlotte, which proved to Charlotte that he did not know her at all. She recognized him and his bravado under his mask. In some weird way, her father thought that all her suitors wearing masks would make it as though Charlotte had a choice in this matter. Charlotte was not amused and laughed at her father's thoughts. She knew she really didn't have a choice and she would have to marry against her wishes. She, however, played her part as the guests arrived. Once everyone was inside, drinks and appetizers were served. Many men approached Charlotte to talk, but nobody really seemed to interest her. Her heart belonged to someone else, and whether he was there or not, it didn't really matter. The heart wants what the heart wants. After the main course was served, the guests were invited to dance. The harps were the first instruments that Charlotte heard singing. Their song was followed by the violins and fiddles. A deep-sounding drum kept a slow and steady beat that danced along the cello's low and ominous tone. The melody of sound and vibration was slightly overshadowed as the piano began to play. Many of the guests continued to eat, and a few started to dance. Some of them seemed happy and eager to be there, while others wondered why they were there, even invited at all. That was when Charlotte noticed the man with the dark eyes. Charlotte was appalled that he was there. Why would her father allow this? He turned and looked at Charlotte, and she could tell that she captured his attention, and it was not in the way that Charlotte usually captured men's attention. Charlotte wondered if anyone else could see the disharmony emanating out of this man. Charlotte again was in deep thought, but got interrupted by a young man who asked her to dance. Charlotte agreed, knowing this man would not be the last one to ask her to accompany them on the dance floor. She was trying to keep an open mind, but her attention was stuck on why the man with the dark eyes was now talking to her father. He was way too old for her anyways, so she tried not to think about it. She turned again and caught the glimpse of a young woman across the ballroom. She also had a certain quality to her eyes. There was something light and bright about them that was held in place by the green of her irises. Charlotte did her best to stay present and in the moment, but she wondered what was so familiar about those green eyes she saw staring at her. The young woman had long blonde hair that went way down past the small of her back. She had a light complexion but wasn't exactly stark white either. She seemed to be about Charlotte's height, but perhaps a little shorter. She was wearing a burgundy gown that had her corset sewn into it and wore purple stone earrings. Her necklace seemed to resemble the North Star with a green stone in the middle of it. The young woman noticed Charlotte staring back at her and smiled very excitedly. Still in her thoughts, Charlotte did not notice that the music had changed. The guests all seemed to know this particular tune as they danced merrily, changing partners every time the tempo changed. Charlotte was whisked into the arms of Conway the Brute. She knew it was him and was happy knowing she would soon be able to change dance partners. She soon wished she was paying more attention as her happy feeling became one of dread. The man with the dark eyes was now standing in front of her. Charlotte wanted to run, but she did not want to make a scene, and she figured her dance partner would soon change. The man with the dark eyes spoke. "You have something that I want." Charlotte was confused, and her face did not hide it. The man with the dark eyes spoke again. "That necklace, give it to me." Charlotte was stunned in the thought of her beloved and the night that he had given her that necklace. She vowed to never take it off. Charlotte's father had no idea that she had actually found someone that she loved. Charlotte kept him secret, thinking her father would never approve of him. Sadly, he recently disappeared. Charlotte had gone looking for him at their spot in the grove. He was not there, and she waited for him until darkness fell. She sat there by the rock formation that they had made. She prayed for him to return, but he did not. Charlotte thought at least she could connect into the earth and ground herself. She connected to the energy of the planet the way her beloved had showed her. He told her about the healing energy of the earth and how in certain places it crossed over each other, making it even more effective for healing. Charlotte understood what he meant on some level, but was having a hard time grasping all of what he was trying to teach her. The rocks formed a circle around a large pointing stone in the middle. Small flat rocks emanated off the center stone, pointing towards a circle of stones on the outside. While Charlotte waited, she began to get frustrated and impatient. She kicked the stones down, and in her anger, she sat there crying, trying to figure out what happened. After some time, she decided to pick up the stones and put them back in order. Finding herself on the dance floor, she remembered what her beloved had told her when he had given her the pearls that she was wearing. It was starting to make sense. One of the pearls in that necklace was slightly misshapen. You wouldn't know it by simply looking at it, but there was a small difference to one of them. She was thinking and trying to come up with a way to get away from this man without anyone seeing her. The man must have known and said, "Run and I will kill you," just like I did him. Her worst thoughts becoming realized. She grabbed her necklace, holding onto the odd-shaped pearl, and ripped the necklace from her neck. The rest of the necklace fell to pieces and the pearls rolled onto the dance floor. One of the guests stepped on one of them and fell into another guest, and they both landed on the ground. Charlotte saw her chance. She turned from the crowd and ran through the ballroom, up the stairs and into her room. Her inner voice was overshadowed by her grief as it tried to tell her that everything will be okay. Her inner voice encouraged Charlotte not to follow through with her thoughts. She quickly disrobed herself and threw on her nightgown. She went down the hallway towards the opposite end of the mansion. She pulled on the painting of her great-grandfather and walked down the secret passage, past the servant quarters, and out towards the stables. Charlotte was getting Lantis prepared for one last ride. He looked at her lovingly as if he knew what she was planning to do. She grabbed a rope and was getting ready to leave when she saw the young woman from the masquerade. "Don't do it," she said, and repeated, "Don't do it. Nathaniel lives on, my lady. He lives on through you. You are with child, his child." Charlotte stopped and could barely comprehend what this young woman was saying. "I am Marcella. I am here to help you." Marcella's eyes spoke truly. Marcella walked behind the pile of hay and grabbed 2 bags. It was as though she had lived in this moment 100 times, knowing exactly what to do. The bags were full of everything they both needed: clothes, provisions, parchment, flint, and steel. Charlotte readied another horse, and the two of them rode out into the night. So there you have it, folks. That's chapter 1 of The Adventures of Charlotte, A Winter's End. I hope you enjoyed it, and please look forward to seeing some more videos that are going to be covering meditation training and other spiritual topics that I mentioned earlier in this video. You can find this book for sale on Amazon, and I greatly appreciate you watching this video.